The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the most enduring and complex geopolitical issues of our time. It centers around a dispute over land, resources, and self-determination. The core issues include the Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, the status of Jerusalem, and the plight of Palestinian refugees. Security concerns, access to water resources, and freedom of movement are also major points of contention. The conflict is characterized by periods of intense violence, interspersed with fragile peace initiatives. Understanding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict requires a deep dive into its historical context and the key disputes that continue to fuel it today. The seeds of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict were sown in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The rise of Zionism coincided with growing tensions between the existing Arab population and the increasing number of Jewish immigrants. The Balfour Declaration of 1917, in which the British government expressed support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, further exacerbated these tensions. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan to divide Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab. This plan was accepted by Jewish leaders, but rejected by Arab leaders, leading to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The war resulted in the establishment of the State of Israel and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, an event known as the Nakba, or catastrophe. The 1967 Six-Day War marked another turning point, leading to Israel's occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and the Sinai Peninsula. This occupation remains a central point of contention today. The pursuit of peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been a long and arduous journey marked by both glimmers of hope and crushing disappointments. The Oslo Accords, signed in the 1990s, represented a watershed moment, leading to the establishment of the Palestinian Authority and a framework for Palestinian self-governance. However, the Oslo process ultimately faltered, failing to address critical issues such as the status of Jerusalem and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. The Camp David Summit in 2000, hosted by US President Bill Clinton, brought together Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat in a high-stakes attempt to reach a final status agreement. Despite intense negotiations, the summit collapsed, with both sides blaming the other for its failure. Subsequent peace efforts, including the Taba Summit in 2001 and the Roadmap for Peace in 2002, also failed to deliver on their promise. The repeated failure of these peace initiatives has contributed to a deep sense of disillusionment and mistrust on both sides. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict persists in a state of perpetual crisis, with the underlying issues remaining unresolved and the situation on the ground increasingly volatile. In recent years, there has been growing international recognition that Israel's treatment of Palestinians amounts to apartheid. Human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have documented systematic discrimination and human rights violations against Palestinians. The Israeli government continues to expand its presence in the West Bank through the construction of settlements which are considered illegal under international law. This expansion further fragments the Palestinian territory and undermines the viability of a future Palestinian state. The Gaza Strip, ruled by Hamas since 2007, remains under a crippling Israeli blockade, creating a humanitarian crisis. Periodic outbreaks of violence, including the devastating 2023 Gaza war, have resulted in a staggering loss of life and widespread destruction. The future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains uncertain, with the prospects for a just and lasting peace seeming increasingly distant. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not just a geopolitical struggle, it is a human tragedy that has left an indelible mark on generations of Israelis and Palestinians. Since the conflict's inception, thousands of people on both sides have been killed. Palestinian casualties have been particularly high, with civilians, including children, often bearing the brunt of the violence. The 2023 Gaza war alone resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of Palestinians, many of whom were civilians killed in Israeli airstrikes. Beyond the immediate casualties of war and violence, the conflict has had a profound psychological impact on both populations. The constant threat of violence, the loss of loved ones, and the daily indignities of occupation have left deep scars on the collective psyche. The conflict has also resulted in the displacement of millions of Palestinians, with many still living in camps scattered across the Middle East. The human cost of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict cannot be overstated, highlighting the urgent need for a just and lasting peace that guarantees the rights and dignity of all.